Hi there. Hi Shereen, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good, good. Thank you for joining me today and taking time to go through some of these questions that I'll have for you. I am here to just listen to what you have to say. I've just got 3 questions for you, mainly around inclusivity in the workplace, especially in light of what's been going on in New York and what started in Minneapolis with George Floyd. There's just been a lot going on. And I know it's can be kind of mentally exhausting. So I just really want to say thank you for
All right.
to do
That's
this.
okay.
So my first question for you is, as a white ally, what can I do to support people of color in the social change ecosystem?
Oh gosh. So, in the spirit of, I just want to do my disclaimer. In the
Yeah.
spirit of honesty, is and as you know, when I started talking about this very publicly,
Mm-hmm.
I decided I wasn't going to water down what I had to say,
Yeah,
which is
please
what I've been
don't.
doing what I've been doing my whole life. So therefore, but I will explain why I'm saying certain things. So the first thing I want to say is I'm gonna say non-black, and the reason why I'm gonna say non-black is because yes, I know there are other minorities
Mm-hmm.
but actually right now the focus has to be on black people.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I've had, and I say that because I've had the whole All Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Had It's just like, you know, this group. Like, I get this injustice, I get all of that, but the challenges of being black are deeply, deeply rooted in a very painful history
Yeah.
that I think no other, well, there's probably other minority groups, I'm not going to say another, but right now, like, this has to be the focus. So I'm almost not allowing the conversations to go off on tangents when I've been talking to people about this. So for non-black allies, what I would say is, like, I completely understand and I get that for a long time you haven't known what to say,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't want to sound ignorant, that you don't want to sound naive. But equally, I will say we can't hear that anymore because for some people it feels like it's a cop out because we don't have the opportunity to just opt out of not talking about the conversation. And how I felt as a black woman, and my actions and me speaking out was driven by what I call the corporate wall of silence. Is when there is anything that's affecting the white community, like it's affecting the black community, like the media, organizations, everybody's jumping on it. We're all in this together. We're here for you. Whatever you need, we've got you. Now, Rosie, you know better than anybody what's been going on in the States, and you have felt the trickle a little bit into the UK. There are many people who have felt more than the trickle into the UK and have consciously ignored it. And so I guess what I'm saying to non-black people is you have to acknowledge us. You have to acknowledge our pain. You have to acknowledge that this is, for many of us, myself included, and I'm talking for a lot of people, we are so deeply out of our comfort zone in just exposing how we feel and how all of the stuff that's going on in the States has made us feel, that by saying, I don't know what to say, I don't want to say the wrong thing, it makes it about you and not us. Because when you say that, it's about your comfort in the same way that I would. So I'm, like, I don't have that conversation. Oh, no, don't talk to me. That's about me. Do you know what I mean? But in this, we can't afford that because that discomfort,
Yeah.
in us bringing it to the table, in feeling like we can talk about it and being listened to, has been allowed to erode any progress that we could have truly made from the days of slavery. And and as you know, you saw my video, and when I talk about, I guess, my trigger or reaction to what happened, it wasn't so much the George Floyd thing, because there's plenty of examples of that. We've got examples of that in the UK. It's just not as magnified, right, like it is here.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of us, it was the video of Amy Cooper.
Right.
Because we have worked with the male and female versions of Amy Coopers.
Mm-hmm.
We've been managed by them. We've lived next door to them. We've worked out with them in the same gym. Do you know what I mean? And when we saw that, and we saw the ease as to which an individual can go to that place of, and I'm going to be brutally honest, it was a plantation owner. Like, when I saw that video, I didn't see her in her, I think she was in like shorts or whatever, and the dog.
Mm-hmm.
What I saw is a black and white movie, you know, with the dresses they used to wear in the late 1800s. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
And I saw a black man in a loincloth, cowered on the floor with this woman. That's what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It surprised me that that was the image in my head, but that's what I saw. And I think that's what I reacted to. And there's a lot of black people, that's what we reacted to. But what we're reacting to even more is the silence, like that, because there's always Amy Coopers of the world. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and before anybody says, like, we also don't need to hear, it's not everybody. We know it's not everybody. That's not what this point is. But for everyone to say, like, she's an extreme and she's this, okay. But then when you add that with the wall of silence, what that says is, as black people, you don't matter. Or you only matter if we're forced to pretend we care. Now, for a lot of people, that's not the case. If you're non-black, I'm not saying everyone sits there and goes, no. But in that discomfort, because you're privileged to be able to feel the discomfort and know that your life will not change on the back of not having the conversation. Your life will not fundamentally be any different. It's not going to be any worse or necessarily any better by you not having the conversation. So you can afford to feel uncomfortable and not say anything. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's we don't talk about that, and we should talk about that. But I guess so I'm talking about that and letting people know that that's why we react the way we do when people say, but I don't know how to talk about it, because even that sentence comes from a place of comfort, because it doesn't matter whether you need to talk about it or not. For us, you know, it's about opportunity, it's about being welcomed, it's about feeling like we're just as important. It's recognizing that just because you say you're not racist is not the same as being anti-racist.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for correcting me in the beginning too. That's actually gonna change my questions from here.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, you know what? Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Good to be aware
Pandora's box, Rosie. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, thank you for that. My next question is, what advice can you give to business leaders to help build a culture that is more inclusive and more open to diversity?
Oh, right. So, I've been reflecting on this because, as you can imagine, I've had lots and lots of questions like this. I think I've worked out roughly I'm fielding over 400 questions and messages and just stuff from the video that I posted. Is a lot.
Yeah, my questions stem from the video, so
yeah. So there's a lot, which is good. So, you know, that's a good thing. What I would say to business leaders is, firstly, you need to talk to your Black employees. But before you talk to your Black employees, so I'm almost like going into HR mode now. I'm just going to give a mini playbook. What you need to do is you need to watch my 20-minute video, not the 10-minute, because that's just me being super punchy, but the 20-minute one, only because I recognise that the impact that has had for non-Black people. And it makes it a lot easier to then think about what they need to do differently. Sorry, this is my kids, like the glory of webinars. This is my kids.
We're all used to it.
So yeah, so you need to then share, potentially with a video. Like, don't hide behind words with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I would even say that if we were all back in the office, do you know what I mean? So even with remote working, but particularly with remote working, because if I'm an employee, I need to see that my CEO, my MD, my board really see me.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see their face. I need to see their facial expressions, because non-Black people have now got to prove to us that you care. So you can't hide behind words anymore. You can't hide behind a hashtag Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the start. Then what you're saying is, we are going to come to you. Because I always say, like, in broad engagement terms, and you know this more than any, you know that line when you say, if anyone's got any questions, like, come back to me, let me know. And nobody ever does that. Nobody ever does that. So this is not one of those moments where you're going to use that approach. What you're going to say is, and you're not also going to say we've got an open door policy, all the corporate BS that we're used to saying. We know this. Don't do that. But what you're going to say is, we are going to take collective responsibility as a leadership team, and you can make your leadership team as expanded or not as you need to, considering what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, depends on the size of the business.
Sure.
But we're going to take some time. We're going to prioritize the time, and we're going to come and we're going to sit with you virtually, and we're going to ask some questions with a genuine intent to listen. We're not asking questions for you to justify your experiences. We're not asking questions to get you to prove to us that this is a problem. And that's where the video comes in, because your video sets the scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying to them is, for whatever reason, I haven't been open to listening, but now I am. So let's talk. And potentially they can have the same conversation that you and I are having.
Mm-hmm.
And what I will say to leaders is, or to anyone who's facilitating this conversation, is it is difficult, right? It's going to be tough. You're going to hear some things that your whole instincts is going to almost make you want to say, but that's not true. That's not the case. No, 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 no. You have to resist the urge to do that. Because the second you do that, you confirm the reason why we don't say anything in the first place. So it's almost like, I always say to people, like, they're like, you got to have an outer body experience. Do you know what I mean? It's called, in certain terms, it's called being the observer, which means you take a step back, and you just, you know, it gives you just a minute just to process.
Yeah.
Because Black people right now, even in the UK, even though we're going, you know, what's happening in your hometown might not be happening here.
Mm-hmm.
But we are just as affected for slightly different reasons, because it's bringing up a whole lot of emotion, a whole lot of trauma about our position in society, which is reflected by our position in the workplace. And we have kidded ourselves, some of us, and this is me, so I can talk about me now. I kidded myself by thinking me progressing in the corporate space, whether I was a PAYE person or whether I was an MD of my own business, was a direct indication of the progress we were making in society. And when I saw the video, and when I saw the lack of acknowledgement here, and when I saw people going, oh, I know it's bad, but what about the dog? Or when I saw one of the newsreaders in the States refer to the whole situation as a squabble. And when I hear people say, but you Black people make it really difficult for yourselves because you've always got this chip on your shoulder. What many of us want to really say is, well, try having your ancestors in chains. Do you know what I mean? Like, try having society tell you that you have to be subservient to the white man. Try having society tell you that you don't have rights. And if you bring it now to present day, try having society to tell you you should be grateful for the opportunities, because people like you don't get them often. And what that means is we then accept things. We accept underpaid opportunities. Myself, if I think about all the things that I've done for free, because I've bought into this whole psyche of, like, I know how hard it is to run my own business. I know how hard it is for a Black woman to run her own business. When I'm not part of the network, I'm not part of the boys club. So then when people say to me, come and do this, but we can't afford to pay you. Come and do this, it's good for your brand, but we can't afford to pay you. And I've sat on stages, Rosey, in panels, I've delivered talks, and I've not been paid because I assumed no one else was paid. And then I find out later that other people were paid for a fact. And then when I ask the question, can I be paid? I'm lied to and told not only nobody else was paid, and then I'm told, but even if they could, there's no budget. Now, if there's no budget for everybody, there's no budget. I get it. What you have to understand, and what I say to anybody who's a business leader, is that your purchasing decisions, how you make those decisions, feed in to a position of economic inferiority that we feel. Because the reality is we can't push back on certain situations. That's why equal pay or whatever it is all of those things are so difficult, because part of us wants to go, it's not fair. Like, why do I not have the title? Why do I not? And this is a broad principle. I am not saying all Black people, we are perfect employees. That's not what I mean. But you know the principle of what I'm saying. And we see that, but we can't afford to challenge. Because when we challenge, and if we get kicked out, it's like being on a ladder. I call it a 10-rung ladder. If you're Black and you're at the top of the ladder, something happens and you challenge that, you fall back down to minus. If you're white at the top of the ladder and something happens, you fall down one rung because you have more opportunity. So that means we don't push back because we know there's not space for all of us. We know we very rarely walk into a business where there's lots of Black people. So you've kind of got one shot. And, you know, and for everybody saying, like, when non-Black people say, oh, I don't see colour, I take everybody as I see them. And I say to them, imagine you walk in to an office building and there are 2,000 white people or 2,000 Black people, and you are the only white person. Now tell me you don't see colour. Now tell me you wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But nobody ever acknowledges that is the reality that many of us have to be in. I was the only Black kid in my school. In fact, when I grew up in Crewe in the Northwest. When my mum moved to Crewe, because she left my dad from, we lived in the Southeast, and the head teacher had to think about whether he allowed us in the school because he wasn't sure whether he wanted Black kids in the school. And this was 1991. I'm trying to think, God, how old I am. Or late 1980s, maybe 1989. I'm trying to think how old my brother was. But like, we're not talking the 1960s and 1970s. Mm-hmm. And I can remember a job that I had where I was the only Black face for a while, and I wanted to hire somebody Black. So that was a bit like, oh my God, 2 Black people, what's going on here? When I wanted to hire a third person who was Black, one of the directors said to me, oh, Shereen, are you trying to make an equal ops statement? This was in the 2000s. And in the workplace, when people say things, they might call us the N-words, they might, you know, all the derogatory ways of referring to us as a Black individual. If we raise this, or even somebody else raises it on our behalf, so an ally who says this is really out of order and they raise it, there's always excuses. for why the white person used a derogatory term. And the burden is on us to let it pass. So the conversation normally goes, I know it's not great, like it's really bad, like, oh my God, it really hurt my feelings, you know, I can't believe that they said that, but he didn't mean it. She didn't mean it. She was upset. Just like how you saw with Amy Cooper, she's not like that. I'm not racist. I'm not. It's exactly the same situation that plays out in the workplace. So all of these leaders, I just want them to hear this. Like, I could give 50 million examples, I won't, but you know, this is what the reality is, and everybody is complicit in this. As Black people, we are complicit in this because we've never said enough is enough. And as non-Black people, as white leaderships, you are complicit in this because you've never stepped up and made sure that behaviours are aligned with your culture. And then you've never done the pre-work to say, what biases do I have? This is not about one little unconscious bias training or whatever, but what unconscious biases do I have? We can't, there's nothing you can do, like our conscious bias, it is what it is, but what fail safes can I put in place? What can I invest in? What can I commit to? What can I make sure we have to make sure that underrepresented groups, Black people, minorities, gay people, disabled people, or whatever, are not having an experience that a white employee has? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the bit where they, you know, everyone has to be really honest and do some reflection. Don't just come out with a little public statement of, you know, with the brown fist or the, you know, like the stupid images you always get with like the black and the white hand holding hands, like don't do that. Don't do that. Like, it's shit.
Not enough.
Don't do that. You know, you've got to really think and understand. You know, don't expect Black people to go and do the education for you. Don't expect us to give you a list of books to read. Google great books to read for white people to understand about racism. Books to read to understand white privilege. Just Google it. There's loads of stuff.
Yeah.
You've got to be really careful versus what are you asking because you want to understand and you want to think about as a business what you're going to do differently versus what you're doing to try and make it easy. And don't underestimate, when you really mean it in those situations as a leader, power of saying 2 words. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I never pushed for a culture that made you feel like you truly belonged. I'm sorry that I got too caught up in the conceptual aspects of diversity and inclusion, the comfortable bits about gender, bits about belonging. And I shied away from trying to understand what it's like to be treated differently because of the colour of your skin. Because the reality is for Black people, we have been made to feel like we should get over slavery. And my counter argument is, how can we get over slavery when we're in 2020 and as a race we are hurting, as a race we are treated differently, and corporate America, corporate UK have turned a blind eye because they feel uncomfortable. So like, tell me what's different other than the fact that we dress differently and live in different houses. Tell me why nobody's talking about the fact that 61% of COVID-19 deaths are from people from ethnic minorities. And understanding that it's about this idea of economic inferiority is because the predominant of those frontline roles that are at risk, those low-level roles. So how many of those businesses in the city that has a predominantly white employee base turning up in suits, and the Black people that they see are the cleaners, the receptionists, the security guards? Sometimes they're ignored. So you have to understand that all of these things are signals to us that we are here to serve non-Black people. And then employees feel uncomfortable about being managed by a Black person, because the second there's an issue, you hear words like, she's too aggressive, he's intimidating, I didn't feel comfortable. You know, and people don't realize, now there might be genuine reasons, as I said, there might be genuine situations, but a lot of this stuff is driven by inherent fear of Black people. And that's why over time we have learned to metaphorically lower our eyes when we look at you, because that's what we're doing when we don't challenge, when we don't step up, when we don't speak out. Like, as awful as it is the equivalent of lowering our eyes and saying, I'll push, but not too much, because I recognize that you have more power than I do, so I'm not going to challenge that. So that is why it's complicated. It's why it's painful. It's why half of my messages that have come from Black people have been telling me about how they're breaking down, how they're fearful for their children, how they're expected to turn up into work and just be the bubbly Black person. Oh, I always like Black people. You're always so smiley and so happy. All of that bullshit. All of that. You know, they're hurting. I had voice notes from people asking me for advice on how they can talk to their white manager, who's fine. So this is not a case of, you know, this person's racist. It's not about that. But how can they explain and articulate that they're not coping with everything that's going on, and they don't know how to express that, because we've already seen hints of, oh, but what's going on in America is not the same thing as over here. I don't even know why Black people are so bothered. And we've learned as a people to not ask for help. It's scientifically proven we have developed higher pain thresholds, not because we don't feel it, but because we don't say it. You know, the strong Black woman is a label. Matt and I talked about this on a podcast a few months ago. Mm-hmm. All of that is part of that. So when you're a Black person, you show up as resourceful and strong because we have to keep pushing forward. Otherwise, if you wallow in all of this, you just wouldn't get anywhere. And I think that's why there's a lot of us who are struggling right now, because there's a lot of pent up stuff that we've probably never dealt with. But when you live up to that stereotype and when you have to live up to that label, what it means is that people take less care with you. Because if Shereen doesn't show emotion, if she doesn't show that she's hurting, I don't need to be as careful. I can be careless. I can not promote her. I can not give her the job title because she's all right. Mm-hmm. If Sally over here is crying and continuously can't cope, can't whatever else it is quicker and easier to pacify her and try and make her feel better than it is to pacify a guy with the name Ade. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just want leaders to hear me when I say this, because what I'm saying is not in any diversity and inclusion handbook. It's not in any playbook. All the businesses that make money off diversity inclusion, many of them are not talking about this. Mm-hmm. Because you have to understand this before you then go back up. You know, because at some point you've got to come out of this. Right. But you have to understand this, and you go back up then and you go, right, not even policies, but what procedures do we have in place? What initiatives have we been looking at? You know, now that you understand with a different lens, and what I say is I deliberately chose doing a video and exposing myself for all the world to see when I'm a deeply private person, partly because the same challenge that I put to you at the very beginning about, you know, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. I had to stop making it about me. So that's why I say I'm not being facetious when I say that I understand, because I was the same thing. Listen, for 17 years, I've said nothing. So how can I criticize anybody for not stepping up and supporting, because I've said nothing for 17 years too? But the difference is, white people are in a position of strength because you're born into strength because of where society places you. We are not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it is complicated. It's a lot to unravel, but I deliberately wanted for people to not be able to unsee me. If you watch the video, you can't unsee me. It's really, really easy. If I gave you stats, you know, like we do, give all the stats and I've been doing it. I've been that one on doing my inclusion talks, giving it all the surface level talk, culture fit. So euphemism, all of that stuff, euphemism. Let's talk about what it really is. You know, I've been that one. But when I talk to you about what it is to be Black, when I say all the things that I've just said, and then part of me, even as I'm talking, I'm thinking, for God's sake, Shereen, shut up. Like, why are you talking about this? Because it's just not me to do that. But it's me to do that because I recognise that Black employees can't say what I'm saying. They don't know how to. And if they did, they'd probably break down. So I've got to. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully more people will. And then my voice gets drowned out. So I can go back to sleep. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, that's the whole bit. So I am talking about this enough for even if no business leader ever engaged with me ever. Like, you've got to hear me when I say this, and then you've got to think about, you know, you've thought about it and you've set the scene for your Black employees. You've then gone and spoken to them and you've gone, like, help me understand, and they've given you some information. You've then gone away and you've spoken to your leadership team, because they've all done the same thing, not just one person, they've all done the same thing. And this is not a job for HR, just to be crystal clear. This is not a HR job.
Right.
Like, HR can help facilitate,
Absolutely.
whether it's tools, whether it's, you know, whatever else it is, but this is not a HR responsibility. And I need to be crystal clear with this. This is a leadership responsibility. Whoever name is in Companies House, whoever's name is on the shareholders report, it's for them to spearhead this, and it's for them to lead this.
Great.
And then when you have all this insight, then you bring back in your HR people and your consultants, and you question all the ways that you do things in the business. So you question why you're a London-based business where 40% of the population are ethnic minorities, yet your business has 1% of ethnic minorities. So you question that. You question the suppliers that you use. You question even, I said to somebody, and this is not to put anybody who is non-Black in D&I out of work, but I'm saying, you know, how many businesses have hired white diversity and inclusion consultants because they feel comfortable talking to them about this with another white person? So it's got nothing to do with the consultant not being good, that's not my point, but because they feel more comfortable. Because they don't want to talk about unconscious bias, they don't want to talk about how they treat minorities, disabled people, anybody of the LGBTQ plus community. They don't want to talk about that with any of those individuals. I want to talk to somebody who's like me in this situation, but you can't keep doing that and at the same time claim you're building a culture of inclusion. You know, and it's the same thing that I called out in my video to say that, you know, if you're a business that makes money, so you grow your business on the back of selling people pipe dreams, meaning you promise them brand kudos, you promise them profile visibility, you promise them all these things to get them to come and talk, to get them to come and, you know, do webinars, you know, speeches or whatever, and you don't pay them, like anybody, doesn't matter who they are, but particularly understand that when you're looking for Black people because you're conscious that all your speakers are white and you don't pay them, you are actively contributing to our economic inferiority. When you want me to come and do something for you, come and talk to your leadership team, come and do whatever, when you want my insights, because that's happened to me a lot of times, I've done a lot of work for free because people can't pay me and I've just thought, oh, it's a good experience. You are actively contributing to my economic inferiority, because you're not helping me get to the same level.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about going above. You're not helping me get to the same level. So these are the moral and value-based conversations that no playbook is going to give you, because it's not a flippant question, but it's a very true question. But if your family, your friends, your colleagues were treated like Black people are treated, how would you feel? Because that's how we feel. You can only get a hint of that until, but that's how we feel. So you if you're gonna do this, like I hope everybody will, probably my video's putting them off, right? They're probably thinking, Jesus, I ain't doing this. Sounds like bloody hard work. But if you're gonna do it, commit to it properly. Don't be putting out a flippant statement. And also I say this because I've seen the lengths that businesses will go to during the pandemic to show everybody how great they are. All these CEOs that were putting up, drop my pay by 50%, I'm doing this, we're turning beer into hand sanitizer, we're dropping off this, we're giving, when you see the level of, like, we're here for you. So you can't tell me you don't have that in your spirit. You can't tell me you don't have that in the arsenal. You can't tell me you don't have the resources. Apply the same energy, as they say in the States. Yep. Give me the same energy that you give for that, and make it easier, and recognise that there's a race of people here in the UK that are hurting.
Thank you, Shereen. Marinating on that. That was a lot.
I always give a lot. I need to not give so much. I know.
It's amazing what you're saying. It's a lot to think about. I have one more question for you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, do it.
As colleagues, what can we do to support that inclusive culture?
Speak up on our behalf. Somebody, and I'll give you a really nice example. So somebody yesterday, I'm on Blackout Tuesday, so I'm not deliberately posting yesterday, but I can see, like, I'm getting these LinkedIn notifications. Somebody yesterday messaged me. I'm not connected with her. She's a young Black woman, and she actually saw my video through somebody posted it on Facebook. So it's gone really random places. I'm not really on Facebook. So she messaged me. She said, Shereen, you don't know who I am. I just want to tell you thank you for your video. And I was like, oh, it's fine. Oh, you're welcome. I know it's difficult to do, but and then she came back to me an hour later, and she said, I thought about your video and I sent it to the HR director. I don't know where she worked. I can go back and check, but I'm not going to, because I'm not going to disclose that. But
yeah.
And she said, the HR director came back to me half an hour later and said, I've watched the video. Have you got time to talk on Friday? Like, I've cleared my diary. Can you talk on Friday? So she messaged me and she said, like, clearly she's more junior, so HR is a big gap.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, like, I can't believe it. I don't even think, this woman even knows who I am. So, we had this whole conversation. She was like, I'm so grateful. She said, but you've made me feel like I can go and start this conversation, because she said, I want to have this conversation. And then an hour later, she emailed me back and said, like, Shereen, the HR director emailed me and said, would I mind if the CEO was in the meeting? Like, I'm going to cry. I don't want to cry.
Wow.
It's just really shit, Rosie. I didn't even want to cry, but like, she's a young girl. She's an employee. She shouldn't feel like this. It shouldn't be for her to see my video, for her to feel like she can talk about what it means to be Black in her business. Like, that's what kills me. It shouldn't be for, a senior HR director who's Black to say, like, I really want to support my Black employees, but I don't know how to do it, because for so long I've said nothing. That's the bit that that's why I say this. That's why I knew that I pissed a lot of people off by talking about this and being so open about it. But that's why I did it. That's why I did it, because, and I tell you, that experience has been played out in every single business And I'm just thinking, it would just not be accepted if all of the white people in this country were going through this country would come to a standstill. Why is nobody listening to us, and why is nobody fighting for us, right? So to your question about what can colleagues do, like, make your leadership to send them the link to my video and say, just watch this, watch my first one, watch this one. Like, send them the link and then just say to them, like, you have to do something about this, you know. And you're going to have to, you know, anybody who isn't Black, you're going to have to step up and be the strength for your Black colleagues, because right now they're feeling like I am, you know. They're feeling like, I know I need to do this, but I don't know how to do this, and I don't want to do it without crying, and I don't want to do, you know, and I don't want to do, you know. I know there was somebody, a friend of mine, who said, there was a guy who works in her business. They're one of a very few Black people there. So he's what we would say in the West Indies, big man. Do you know what I mean? Meaning he's of a certain age. We're not talking about a young employee. And he saw something on Twitter and he just broke down. So, like, this has stirred a lot of emotions, and but I'm surprised that I'm reacting like this. I'm surprised that, you know, but I am indicative of a lot of people, you know, and in the same way that we are recognizing in ourselves, for some of us, how we've not spoke up and how we've just put that into a box, you know. And just from a integrity point of view, we've put on a good front, and then you'd be fighting the good fight, and we go on and we try and tell our kids. I've got 2 daughters, and I'm telling them, you know, you can be whoever you want to be. You go for it. You don't take any mess from anybody. You don't let anybody tell you what to do. And yet here we are as a people submitting. And that's why I think we're now, you know, is talking up. I want more people to talk up, because we shouldn't be treated like this. It's not fair. So sorry for crying on me too.
Okay.
I thought I was gonna do so well. I'm just like, oh God.
I just think I would cry.
Oh no.
Got me.
Damn it. God damn it. You know.
I wish I could give you a hug right now.
No, I know. And that's the worst, you know what I mean? Well, I say that, every sudden America's rioting right now, clearly forgetting about coronavirus.
I know.
But, you know, it's just, you know, and I think that's the thing, you know. Like, would I leave I don't know. I had cancer a few years ago, so my immune system is not great. So I'm not sure I would even think about, you know, going and doing a peaceful protest and you know, and whatever else it is. But
safe right now.
This is the equivalent of me protesting.
Yeah.
This is it. Like, you know, I didn't even like crying when I was pregnant. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, oh shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's like twice in 1 week I've said I've been crying. But you know, because that's how much it matters, and that's how deep it is.
Yeah.
And I just want people to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
And also be prepared for your emotions when you hear it. Because it's tough here. It's tough for me talking about it. I can't imagine hearing it. It's a bit like, you know, when a friend is telling you that they're going through something, you might not live in your friend's shoes, but you can empathize with the pain of your friend, and therefore you feel affected. This is the same thing, because you will hear people tell you things that you just have no idea. Not only did they feel like that, but not only did they experience that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I mean, I even did this. You know, the comments that I saw on my post, and some people sharing some of their experiences of their youth, and you know, there's some like big people. They're in their 50s or whatever, and they can see things like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So this will stir up a lot of emotions for us, talking about it and just owning it. You know, and that's probably where the release is coming from, because we've held it in for such a long time. But there is also going to be emotions for you listening to it. You know, and all I will say is on that is just be mindful that it's not our job to make you feel better either.
100%. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So, and I, you know, I say that with all the love, but you know what I mean when I say that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it, you know.
Yeah. I also understand it's not on us to ask you all these questions.
No, I know, but do you know what? I equally, so I said that, you know, like, don't be asking me. However,
Yeah.
you know, as I said, the thought process that I went through was I read, and I think I didn't put this in the video, but I read an article from Business Insider. I will send it to you because it will give people an understanding of my mindset when I decided to record the first video that I did.
Yeah.
It's from a US Navy SEAL who used to work for the Bush and Obama administration, and he was giving the talks to the MIT graduates for this year. And basically, he starts this talk. It's great, but he starts this talk about saying he had the script lined up. It's going to be some cute little anecdotes about his work, and then clearly reflect. And this was quite, you know, before it's got to bubbling the stages now. But he's reflecting on not only the pandemic, but what's going on in justice, and you know, to such. So he talked about what it means to be people of integrity. And in this article, he talks, which is just, you know, it's a written version of his speech. And he talks about the fact that it is uncomfortable and it's you know, you've got to make great sacrifices. And sometimes to make the impact that you want to make, you have to stop making it about you and your comfort or your discomfort.
Right.
And we all like to think we're people of values and integrity. Oh my God, my values, my values. But that was the article that I read that really made me think and go, but every time that I've not done anything on this is because I wasn't ready to make any sacrifices. Now, some people will still not be able to, and that's cool, because I always think everyone finds their own fight, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone does. I'm 39, look how long it's taken me to find mine. But if I've got to sacrifice my comfort,
Might have to wait a few more minutes. See if she comes back. Shereen, I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't. I think you froze. Resuming recording. Okay, we're good.
yeah. So I had to sacrifice my comfort. You know, and I said to my partner, like, how do you feel about me, you being the sole breadwinner for another year? And he was like, why are you saying that? I was like, yeah, because, you know, and I guess it was me just confronting all the things that I was afraid of that would happen by me speaking out. I had to confront it, just deal with it, and then just go and do it. So, you know, that's what I did. And then, you know, now cried on video. Like, you can bleep this
Okay, it
out.
opens the doors to everybody to let out
just,
emotions,
you know, but
you know?
listen, if that's the extent of my discomfort right now,
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I mean? When you've got literally people being attacked and, you know, threatened, I'll cry every day. If that's it. If that's it. If that's all it is. Because that's about my pride. That's not about anything other than my pride and wanting to be keeping my shit together. Do you know what I mean? But this is important, and I'm not going to do it a disservice by giving it an academic response and, you know, like a super professional. Do you know what I mean? Like we can all. You could have asked me, like, so you could have been like, yeah. We this is not a subject to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's the time for us to show our empathy. It's the time for us to show our compassion. And even as Black people, even me, I am still compassionate and empathetic about what it is to hear something that you maybe suspected but kind of never really wanted to explore any deeper, and now you're confronted with it, and therefore you're now internalizing and thinking all the times when I had situations where I saw things, maybe when I said things, maybe when I did things that weren't right, you know. So where everybody's confronting like our own moral value set, we're all in this, you know. But as I said, it's, you know, understand that we as a people have been treated like we're not worthy to look you in the eye. And this is now for business leaders to show us that that's not true anymore.
Right. 100%. Well, that was all I had for you today.
I think that's enough, Rosie. Do we think that's enough?
It was amazing. Everything you said. I think I need to just like take an hour or two or maybe 3 to decompress.
You know what I mean? You're just a bit like, oh my God.
To be honest with you, I did feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but since we've been talking about, since I've been listening to you, I feel a lot better about what you've said and what you've shared. So thank you.
Yeah. And I just think, you know, what I because I don't know where this is going, whether this is going out to your clients or to your members or whatever, but you know, Matt did a great thing for me yesterday, you know, when he saw my post and he WhatsApped me and he said, I'm watching your video with my kids. And he said, I'm going to watch it a second time. And he did. It's like 20 minutes long. So, you know, that's in this day and age, that's like a long video.
Yeah.
You know, and then he called me and we had a conversation and we spoke, and he said, you know, like, I'm going to push it out because you've made me think really differently about stuff. And he did, you know, and he obviously opened the floodgates, and he was like, I've spent all day, and he was like, but it's a good thing, you know, it's a thing. And I think that's the definition of allyship, when you take yourself out of your own comfort zone, you know. And even for me to think, you know, the happiness index, you know, freedom to be human, he's now changed it for freedom to breathe, you know, all of this stuff. And I guess this is also my opportunity to say, let me just be crystal clear. What Matt did, what you guys have done, is not a marketing gimmick. So on my watch, do not let anyone accuse you of doing this to market off the back of this.
Yeah.
Like, this was done to recognise and to publicly recognise all the emotions and all of the ways that I've got you to think differently when you watched my video.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So because I know we're heading into a territory, right, where everybody's going to start doing their little something because they're going to think, shit, I've got to get in quickly.
Yeah.
Like, don't be that one, you know, take your time, like, do it properly, be thoughtful, and then decide what you're going to communicate to the rest of the world, but continue to do the work behind the scenes. It doesn't start and stop just because you put a statement. It doesn't start and stop just because you've had a conversation. Like, you've got to do the work, and you've got to think about how can you make it right in every part of the way you do business, every single part of the way you do business.
Yeah. It's great advice. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for listening. God, how long was that? Is anyone going to see this for this long? But you know what, maybe.
We're at an hour. So.
Yay! An hour. So I feel better about my 20 minutes, but you know what? I hope people watch it. So
too. I hope they watch to the end.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, Shereen. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
I'm gonna stop the recording now and close it out, but I will be sharing this around to pretty much everybody and anybody that I can, so.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, Shereen. Thank you.
See you later. Bye.